All right, Abby, are you ready for another night of bedtime story? Here it goes. Safe, quiet, and familiar. That is Villeneuve in a nutshell. It was a good life, but a very small one. Though my neighbors found contentment in their daily chores and tasks, I often found myself longing for more. My father taught me to read when I was very young, and from then on, I devoured every book I could find. While I never quite felt like I fit in with the townspeople, I found a kindred spirit in Pierre Robert. We shared a deep love of literature. Though his collection of stories was meager, he graciously shared his books with me. Within the well-worn pages, I could venture beyond the borders of Villeneuve and become lost in worlds unlike my own, encountering shipwrecked sailors marooned on tropic isles, gallant knights astride their noble steeds, and star-crossed lovers bound to a great destiny. The books made my small corner of the world feel much bigger, and with every page I turned, I wished my story could be more like theirs. I yearned for adventure, and knew in my heart that one day I would find it. Little did I know, adventure would find me, and much sooner than I ever expected. One day, I will travel to Paris. A distant country town on the main road to Paris. My father once visited this charming place on his travels. My mother used to say this: people who talk behind your back are destined to stay there. In provincial Villeneuve, gossip was the main source of entertainment, and my papa and I were frequently popular topics of discussion. My mother had died in Paris when I was an infant, and I often heard the village women despair of my father's ability to raise a girl properly on his own. They would remark that he was spoiling me by letting me wander so freely and read to my heart's content. Fortunately, my father and I were as unconcerned with my unladylike behavior as the citizens were scandalized. An artist and inventor by trade, my father made a living by creating ingenious music boxes he sold at market once a year. He was very clever, and by virtue of his hard work, we had made a pleasant enough life for ourselves in the village. In what little spare time he had, Papa painted. My favorite of his works was the one he was least satisfied with: my mother holding an infant girl, me with one arm, a single red rose in her other hand. I gathered from what little my father was able to tell me that my temperament is very similar to my mother's, free-spirited, Papa called us. It seemed to make him happy that I was so much like her, but also so deeply sad in some ways. I could tell he missed her terribly, and despite my urging, he would rarely speak for her. The merest hint of the subject seemed to cause him such pain that I never pressed too hard. It's strange to think how it was one of my father's market trips that led to the adventure that would change my life so drastically. That morning I helped my father pack and prepare the wagon for his overnight journey. I made sure he was dressed properly for the weather and had everything he needed. Before we bid each other our fond goodbyes, he asked me what I would like him to bring me from the market. It was something of a tender joke between us. I asked for the same thing each year, a single rose, like the one my mother held in the painting. It was a gift he'd never once failed to deliver. As I watched my father's wagon vanish down the road, I had no expectation that this excursion would be any different than the ones before. While my father was away on his trip, I had my own chores to attend to, and I set to them like the inventor's daughter I was. With the help of an old barrel, a leather strap, and the potter's mule, I was able to devise a way to get the laundry done very quickly, allowing me time to indulge in the pleasures of a good book. Or at least that was the intent. Come to the artisan market. Jean's candles, Antoine's tapestries, Guillaume's knives, Pierre's wooden dolls, Maurice's music boxes, Henry's embroidered cloaks. I was sitting at the fountain, lost in the pages of my latest loan from Pierre Robert. It took me a moment to realize I was not alone. I looked up to see the eyes of a young village girl watching me. She asked what I was doing. I knew that the village headmaster did not allow girls in his classroom. Was it possible she had never seen anyone reading for pleasure before? I replied that I was reading a story. Then I offered to teach her. I saw her eyes light up, and it made me remember how I felt when I first learned to read. It was like getting the keys to a secret door that unlocked the world. She was more than willing and eagerly listened as we began the lesson. All right, Abby. I love you. Good night.